laughing because last time I think we missed the recording or something like that, and I've had a few people miss the recording button, and as soon as I come on, I'm not even on yet. Recording in progress. Let's not forget that.
I will not forget this
You
time.
will nail it this time.
Nothing will go wrong.
Oh man.
Oh, except for I went back to the gym and it's been a while because I fell on my roller skates and
Right.
I told you about my ACL. And
Yep.
so this is like my third class back. And my second class, we did arms and my like these little tiny little muscles here. So I'm like reaching to get something, but I can't fully extend my arms. So I like
Oh
go to
no.
get it. I'm like, oh, I can't get it.
Oh
It's
no.
pretty pathetic. Pretty pathetic. How's it
Oh man.
going?
It's been going well again in my bubble. Everything's cool. You? Other than all the things you've told me about, ankle, crash computer, going to Florida when a hurricane comes. I mean, really, how has it been going over there for you outside of all those things?
That's my life, man. It's
Yeah.
like
Getting used to
it's like my mom says, some days chicken, some days feathers.
it.
And my feathers are pretty dramatic. And
Yeah.
then chicken, and then it's like, yeah, this is great. And all of a sudden, like something. I shouldn't feed into that though, because it's not true. I have a really good life, and
Good.
but something things just get exciting.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'll be 53 on the 27th of this month.
Wow.
And I don't want to go down without a fight. So I'm
Yeah.
doing things like roller skating and then
There you go.
right. And my body's like, no.
You know, maybe a little slower next time. We'll get this.
Oh well. My husband's like, no more roller skating for you. I said, I'm gonna hold on to them because I have a feeling I'll be back. And he
Yeah,
said,
I'll be
no.
back. Come on. It was the first you hadn't done it in a while. It was just it was practice.
Yeah. I did fall pretty hard and it was a reasonable, like it wasn't like how you hurt yourself. You're like, how did that happen?
Mm.
I fell pretty hard, so I
Yeah.
think it was allowed.
Yeah. It wasn't an old age injury. It was an injury that anybody that could have been 35 could have suffered from, right? So don't stop
Exactly.
now. Yeah,
Exactly.
totally. Got it.
But I did say to my husband, actually, no, not to my husband, my girlfriend. We went out to dinner, and she had an injury from jujitsu, and she's my age, and she does jujitsu and Brazilian jujitsu, and she like pulled a rib, and that's a pretty painful injury. And
Yeah.
she said that she was really sad for her mom because she's watching her mom decline in age, and something about her hip. And I said, did you know that people think old people fall down and break their hips, and really what happens is they break their hip and they fall down, and
Mm.
they can tell that by the break itself and how brittle the bone is and whatnot. And it's really common. And so that's like an old age injury, right? Where,
Yeah.
you're falling because your bones are brittle.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
good.
Yeah. Yeah. I know exactly. I
Mhm.
get it. Is my light too bright?
It's nice and bright. I wish my brightness is behind me. I wish it
Should
was.
be less bright though. Is it like does it like something
No,
coming off my forehead? Is it okay? It looks bright, but I can't tell.
no, it's nice.
Okay.
Your eyes are super blue. It's the shirt. No, it's great.
All right. Okay. Good. Well, that's what I was going for.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
So
So before we start here, I
yeah,
know we're going to have a conversation, but how upset are you about Nancy Pelosi having not no longer being the speaker?
gosh, I haven't slept in a couple days. It's
It's
been
meant to
really,
bother you.
yeah, it's been really hard. But nothing a little champagne wouldn't take care of. I'm just
Wouldn't
kidding.
care. The Babylon Bee is reporting that she's now on a street corner trading stock tips for food, which I think
Hey,
probably, I mean, if she's got any kind of that's probably her game if she's going to do something now.
I mean, that's how she made all her money. Like
Exactly.
the salary of a a congressperson, house speaker is not very much. And her wealth is, I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but
Yeah.
it's pretty shocking what they've done. But it's totally legal. I was talking to a podcast guest, and he was saying it's totally legal for these politicians to do insider trading like that.
So a lot of things are legal apparently these days that shouldn't be.
Yeah, right,
Like legal
right,
things that should end in Nuremberg trials. If you want to get it
exactly.
into the legal, who's calling it legal anyway? That's the point. The people
Yeah,
that are making the laws are calling it legal. Okay, good. And then people are corrupt. Okay, so then okay, we're all right then, right?
Right.
Legal.
Exactly. Exactly. And
Good Lord.
apparently it's been used on both sides for a very long time where, they're actually deliberating on particular, things about, commodities or, they're trying to make legislation about certain things and they get insider knowledge and they know that this pipeline's going to close or they know that this company merged with that company and then they just turn around and they just like invest in it. That, I mean, didn't Martha Stewart go to prison for that?
Who?
Martha Stewart.
Oh, Martha. I thought you said Marcus Stewart. I'm like, who's Marcus? Yeah, yeah, yeah. She
Mhm.
did,
She did. What the heck?
and she didn't. Well, I mean, I'm not sure where she got. Maybe she got her insider tips from Pelosi, and she took the fall. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
I don't know where she got her tips from, but yeah, you're right. Exactly. She,
Yeah.
guess the sacrificial lamb for the rest of them.
Yeah,
Poor
maybe.
Martha. Poor
Poor
Martha.
Martha. Yeah, she's doing terribly.
To bake her way out of that one.
Oh my God. Well, how do you feel about Nancy being gone? You lose some sleep about it?
Um, man, well, there's a few things I'm really upset about. Nancy leaving is one big one.
Hmm.
Um, I'm also upset about this delayed counting because I think Hobbs just won it outright, and Lake is just being a poor loser. There's just a number of things that I'm ruminating on. I'm just like, oh, come
Yeah.
on, people. There is no election fraud. Like, it's not like show me the evidence.
Yeah. But don't show me because it isn't evidence.
I was just kidding. Don't show me.
The
No,
thousands of affidavits don't count
right.
because they just don't.
Real
They
people
don't.
don't count. No, they don't. No, they're not. They're not qualified to give affidavits. That's the problem.
Right. That's it. That's what it is.
They're not.
And the video, what good is video? What good is video? Video's no good. That doesn't show anything. When you see
Seriously.
people dumping boxes of ballots into a ballot drop box on video, that's not evidence.
Seriously, they got to up their game. If video is the best you got, you have to up your game.
Right. I want fingerprints, maybe.
That's right.
I
Yes.
want confessions.
Confessions. Confessions. Exactly. Show
I
me
mean,
blood that they're a cheater. Come on.
it's people are not going to really understand our sense of humor, are they?
No, probably not, but that's okay. As long as I always say to people, you know what? If nothing else, I amuse myself, and that's what's the most important. Because if I can do that, then it doesn't matter what else anyone else thinks about my sense of humor. If they do, okay, let's gather in. This is cool. This is fun. But I'm going to always amuse myself with my own sense of humor. So,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm back on Twitter, which
oh,
is, yeah, which was a big decision I felt like because I left, well, I didn't leave. I got banned after January 6th for sharing picture of the Capitol and saying I'm proud to see my fellow Americans protest like they should peacefully
mm,
and got banned. And also, I had been warned multiple times because I had shared ivermectin multiple times and Dr. Malone's
uh,
information. And that was like I had like 3 or 4 warnings before that, and then eventually got banned. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going back. And then Elon Musk bought it, and I don't
mhm,
trust him as far as I can throw him. But
mhm,
I really liked the idea that what he was doing in terms of like, he said he wants to make it a public forum, a public square where news is shared freely. And in order to do that, a reliable source that you would go to Twitter for news.
mm,
And in order to do that, it needs to be uncensored. And I
mhm.
was like, I'm in then. So I joined again, only to get caught up in silly little fights, which is what I thought about. Like, um, I think it was Rob Snyder posted a GIF of Bill Gates getting a pie to the face,
Ah,
and it
yeah,
was so funny. It was
yeah.
so funny. And I mean, so many. And I said, someone was like, I don't understand what you're trying to support and encourage violence. It was a pie, okay? It wasn't a BLM riot. It wasn't a, Molotov cocktail. It was a cream pie to the face, okay? And I was like, um, yeah, if you don't get it, if we have to explain it to you, you won't understand. And
Yeah,
hashtag scroll, keep scrolling. And
yeah.
everyone really liked that comment. But these few people come in and they're like, okay, Jesus lover, like really took offense to the fact that A, Bill Gates took a pie to the face and people were laughing. And B, I, being a believer, somehow can't have a sense of humor about somebody, getting a pie in the face. I don't know. So that was just about 20 minutes of my day today that I didn't need to spend. So I
You
might
need,
leave Twitter.
you need to tell these dudes that say these things that to put down the soy latte. Like put it down, step away from the soy latte, grow a pair.
I'm
That's
going to do that right now.
you give me a second.
Give
There
me
needs to
one
be more
second.
pies. There, in my opinion, needs to be more pies. Every one of
Uh-huh.
these people, before anything big happens in terms of going to prison or whatever else is going to come of these people, who knows? Everyone needs to be pied first. I mean,
Yeah.
it's either pied or tarred and feather. Which one would you prefer?
Yeah. Yeah. I'd take the tar
I
and
mean,
feather for them. Yeah, for
yeah, I
sure.
would. Yeah, I mean, come on,
Yeah,
people.
like ask them, like, yeah,
There,
what do
there,
you
there
like?
could be a lot worse than a pie to a face. We've become really soft for people that are, you
Yeah.
know, depopulating the planet, and maybe we should maybe toughen up a little bit and demand some real justice. And I think
Right.
they should bring back the pies. Actually, I really think they should.
I mean, I said, I don't know that you would be saying this if it was Donald J. Trump with the pie in the face.
Mm.
I think y'all would be pretty supportive of that
I think you're
gift
on it. I
and
think
having
you're
a
on it.
giggle.
Selective justice, I guess.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Not for him, but for him. I get it.
Well, isn't that the name of the last, I'm not even going to say 2 years, but yeah, I guess 2 year. Well, no, I'm going to say since Trump got elected. Isn't it, I'm going to call it, it's just hashtag double standard.
Mm.
That's the name of since 2016, hashtag double standard.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just got worse and worse.
That hashtag should actually go viral. It needs to go viral because that's what it is. The double
Yeah.
standard is in full effect, and I can't believe that people can't see how badly this double standard or how bad this double standard is
Yeah.
and who they're supporting.
Right.
I mean, for me, again, it comes down to good versus evil. And I
Mm-hmm.
guess we all get to try to discern who's good and who's evil and who's somewhere in between and who's transitioning and who's white hat, who's black hat, whatever, in whatever terms you want to use. I don't care really what they are, but that's really what it comes down to. And the rest of us we don't know the full story, obviously. We're
Right.
trying to gather, some of us, that maybe are in the 1% of gathering information where we understand certain things because we aren't just following the mainstream media, following alternative media, using your brains, thinking, all these kinds of weird things that people don't necessarily want to do today. They want to regurgitate more than they want to actually, think independently.
Yeah.
And when it comes down to it, we don't know much at all. I mean, there's wars going on in the trenches that we'll maybe never know about unless it comes out in a book, a movie, or whatever else. I can't imagine the things that are going on behind the scenes. And I know enough that I can't talk to 99% of people and have a reasonable conversation with them because they think that I'm a conspiracy theorist just
Right.
by looking at the facts, whether it's the injections or the elections or whatever it happens to be. But we don't even know. We have no idea in terms of what is actually going on under the surface. Like you said, Elon, I don't trust them at all. Other people like full on trust them because I've done my research and I'm kind of like in between. I'm like, I have no idea. I'm just actually observing at this point. I'm just absorbing and observing with him because I have no idea. I
Yeah.
see both sides of it. I'm just like, I'm just observing because I don't even want to get into the misinformation now. For me, all it comes down to is how do I protect myself, my family, and my bubble at this point with things that are going to fall out. I don't know exactly how it's going to look, but they're going to fall out. How do I do that? Because if I keep on playing this game, trying to figure out every single thing, and believe me, I like to try to figure things out. But it's like, Derek, step back because this isn't helping your game. This isn't helping your overall plan. This is cocktail party stuff that we can talk about later. Who is right, who is wrong in their predictions. If you want that, if your ego is satisfied by knowing what some other people didn't know, for me, it's not satisfying. The only thing
Mm-hmm.
that's satisfying is me protecting myself and my family and my friends and anyone else who wants to listen. And that's the most important thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. I mean, I think the satisfying thing for me, which there hasn't been much of, is just justice.
Mm.
And but you have a good point. Justice for what? Do you know the whole story behind that? Like, I was listening to the election stuff in Arizona, listening to some experts like Rich Barris, who's a numbers guy. He's like a statistician, a statistics guy,
Hmm.
and he's very good. He's very, very good. And he's conservative, but he's really very honest and not biased in his information that he shares. And he was saying, the fact is there was a law that went into effect in Arizona, that Republicans signed. I don't know the details, that said that they could not start counting their ballots until election day, where Florida and many other states could count their ballots ahead of time. And so, he was saying, so the fact is, so these are the facts. This is why Arizona is having these issues. and then he would show the other side of it, where it's like there's also, this very fishy situation with, people, the tabulators breaking and people being disenfranchised. But it was nice to hear both, all as much information as I could,
Yeah.
hear.
Yeah.
And then, and still I couldn't make an educated decision about it. I really like Carrie Lake, and I think she's been slandered just like so many other people. Even my mom was like, she's got such a bad mouth. Like, really, mom? That's what you care about? She's like, everyone loses respect. And if you talk like that, people aren't going to respect you. And I wouldn't vote for her. I'm like, wow, that's where we're at.
Yeah,
So,
it's true.
but
Like
you're
you said,
right.
the mean tweets, right? That was the thing that kind of got everyone on their edge. And I'm like,
Yeah,
I understand where people are coming from, but I mean, you also have to realize, most politicians, we'll say career politicians, let's say career politicians for sure, have learned to obviously talk out both sides of their face.
right.
And, I often say to people, what they say in public, all nicely in proper grammar and everything else, and what they do behind the scenes are two different things.
Yeah,
All I want is someone who's transparent, who's not
yeah,
who's willing to show their emotions one way or the other. And yeah, I'm not looking for someone that necessarily doesn't know how to communicate effectively, but we want results is the bottom line. That's what we all
that's the
want
bottom
is
line.
results. And does the rest of it matter? The rest of it to me is a facade.
Hmm.
So I mean that's how I look at things. I think many probably do. Certain sides, fractions of both sides, if you want to call them sides, look at things a little bit differently. Some people are a little bit more emotionally involved in terms of who the person is and how they talk and things like that. And the other
Yeah,
side's more like, let's see the facts. What's the data? What's the analysis? How have our lives changed as a result of their decisions?
yeah,
And that's where we're kind of split. And I think we all, as usual, want the same types of things.
yes,
Let's say we all want health and happiness. I think we probably can agree to that among everything else. We want a home. We want to be able to support our families, have income. And that's been demolished over the last few years in all
yeah,
countries, I think in many countries, not just the US
yeah,
and Canada as well. And I think we all want that all back, but we're arguing over who are the best people to help lead us in that direction. Which brings me to another point. I was saying to someone the other day, we talk about this election process, we talk about voting and the importance of voting and all those things. But my argument always is, yeah, you can vote for sure. But the most direct and the most immediate result, I believe, that you can get as a citizen is to vote with your dollar.
yes.
Period. Because you can elect people in, but then you got to wait for them. They can't, they can't be, well, they can't be
Mhm.
dictators. The dog wants in on this one.
Yeah, hang on one second.
Well, voting with your dollar, consider this, because as I said before, even when you elect somebody, they're going to have to draft up bills or whatever it is in legislation, and you're going to have to get agreement with hundreds of other people to pass
Hmm.
this. That can take a long time to happen. I'm not saying that's not important, but when you vote with your dollar, the impact is way more immediate because we know, people who run a business know that your business cannot survive without other people's money. That
Yeah.
that's the lifeblood, right? Without it, it's gone. I mean, look at Amazon, Meta Technologies, which whatever they're Meta, which is Instagram, Facebook, whatever else they might have,
Hmm.
and Disney between 40 and 60% drop in their stocks this past year. Do you think that's because of legislation? It's not because of
No.
legislation. This is because of decisions you and I and other people have made that they want to support these companies. And now they're laying off people and all these things are happening. Like, you got to realize this lifeblood. If we keep on giving them our money, they're going to continue to survive. We learn how to spend our monay on people that are doing things maybe we want. We can call them patriots. We can call, good people that are doing things that are helping with our health, our finances, things like that. If you start
Yeah.
voting that way, these effects are probably going to be much more immediate. And it's the only way, really, in my opinion, that we have a direct impact. Our dollar
Mm.
has a direct impact. The rest is buffered by legislation, a bunch of other things could take time, and whether it even goes through, right? Because whether
Right.
the politician actually believes that and anyone else wants to support it, we know we can shape, and we have. Why do you think organic food and all this stuff's here? Do you think that they really want us to have access to organic food? And those kind of no, they rather us eat GMOs and pesticide-ridden foods. But no, we demanded it. People in
Mm.
California, demanded it, and this is why we have an organic industry that's doing the way it is. Just like with health products and everything else that you and I talk about all the time. The
Yeah.
reason they're here is because people want these things. Otherwise, they wouldn't want us to have access to these things. So I'm always,
Yeah.
you can vote, but really think. I don't think people do this enough, and I can be guilty of it as well. Think about who you're giving your money, and if you want that company to survive, or if you want them to go away, or whatever happens to be, use your dollar as your vote. And if we start to
Mhm.
do that, we'll shape the country way faster, I think, in terms than we will by electing representatives.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so smart. I mean, I was thinking about how much money is spent on buying stuff from China. And it's
Mm,
tough because, a lot of things are just outsourced there, almost everything now.
yeah.
And I was really trying to make an effort in the past, and I'm doing it again now, but to getting to educating my clients and people about, listen, almost everything on Amazon is made in China, and
Mm.
why that matters, why that should matter to you, and uh, to support, U.S. companies, and just altogether stop doing certain things. Like, I mean, they have us, especially through COVID, locked down, where we are at home on the computers, on our phones, shopping, watching Netflix. Like,
Yep.
that's what they want. But
Yep.
I think you're right. I think people, voting with your dollar is so, so smart and important. One thing I learned recently talking to a friend was about, you know, the what's going on for people like you and me who either naturally have the predisposition of looking at things and not trusting them and trying to see the bigger picture type of thing, or they became that way because of a lot of, like for example, the last 2 years, where all of a sudden a lot of people are like, I don't trust that. In fact, I'm never going to get another vaccine again or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
That there's that, but then there's people who are the complete opposite and assume that everything, maybe that's not, I'm going to try to be not kind about, I'm going to try to be kind about this because a lot of people I know are like this,
Hmm.
people who I care about. They're assuming the best, right? They're
Yeah.
assuming
Mhm.
that if somebody makes a bar of soap and it says natural on it, they're assuming that that company is looking out for that product for you.
Yeah.
And um, I mean, we know a lot of people like this. They're assuming that their doctors know more than they do and
Hmm.
that they are looking out for them, their best interest. And that's just not the case,
Mhm.
right? And
Yeah.
so what they've done over the last couple of years is they've created, and apparently this isn't new, you probably know this. It's been done many times in history where it's like psychological operations where they can completely, the example was used where if you have a zoo and you have all these animals in a zoo and some construction is going to be taking place either in the zoo or close by the zoo, they have to do all these arrangements to make sure that animals are separated during this disturbance.
Mhm.
Because if the animal is put in a condition where they feel there's no escape and it's a stressful environment, they will go after each other.
Mm.
And then you add to that. So just, obviously I'm talking about lockdowns and no escape, no escape. There's no escape. Your business is going to close. You can't
Yep.
go back to school. We all have to wear masks. There's no escape from this. And you might die and
Mm.
you might kill someone else, right?
Hmm.
That's the ultimate possible psychological operation on
Yeah.
humankind.
Yeah.
And so what happens? You do what they say. You trust it. They're looking out for me. You trust it. And then add to that, the only way out of this is a vaccination. And
Right.
anyone who doesn't want it is trying to kill you and is stupid and is racist and is a
Right.
white supremacist.
Right.
Now you've got that zoo scenario and people are just at their throats. So yes, voting is not a huge, it's something,
Yeah.
but using your dollar is also something. But we have to heal from this. We have to
Yeah.
heal from this division. And I don't know how to do that.
Yeah. I don't either. And that's a great analogy with the animals. And and also when we talk about voting too, that's assuming that your vote is counted. And
Right.
obviously we're seeing, some of us are seeing that is not necessarily the case. And
Yeah.
and you want to obviously vote for somebody, you want to make sure that vote counts for that person. And we're seeing that there could be a 50-50 chance that it could go either way. And,
Yeah.
that's a big problem. Even with all the other stuff we discussed with voting and having an impact, and if your vote's not even counted, it's like everything's, what are we doing here? Well, we're
Yeah.
not. We're listening to selected leaders, and when now we feel we have no power, well, we're supposed to have all the power.
Yeah.
But I don't know if you saw some of these stats. This is a good segue in terms of assuming that the government and the health officials and big pharma, whatever, are wanting to do the best thing for us and save us
Hmm.
from this
Protect us.
pandemic. I don't know if you heard these numbers, but I heard this the other day. This from the Ethical Skeptic, um, and he was gathering some numbers together, and so we have. This is the quote: "We have killed the most citizens in the history of any man-made action. with this response. Here's some numbers to consider that were brought up. First one, World War One. So 116,516 people apparently killed in World War One. World War II, 405,399. Okay.
Wow.
The American Civil War, 618,200. What comes in last or first, depending which way you look at it? COVID response, 976,530. So, and we know the COVID war is not over.
Mm.
It's far from over. We're going to continue to see these numbers climb. These other things are over. COVID's not done yet. And we can also argue that some of these numbers, based on what we've seen behind the scenes, is not anywhere being close, but we're going to use this as the number. It's still way ahead. By the time this is all said and done, I think this number could triple, quadruple. It could even be 10 times some of these numbers.
Sure.
And this war went on right underneath our noses. And like you said, we're all backed into a corner. They're getting us to fight each other. But the difficulty is, like you said, how is this resolved other than someone sees the light, for lack of a better way to put it? Because if we have people that are divided against us who are willing to take us out and we're trying to fight for them, what do you do at that point? It's like it's like a friend, trying to stab you to death. It's like, what do? Do you just let them stab you, or are you going to fight back and try to save your life? That's kind of the situation that we're in, and maybe not quite as serious, but serious in other ways too. It's like, how do you solve that? You have to have the person that maybe is, I'm not necessarily saying everyone's this way, but let's just say the person's went insane. The sanity needs to return. But how do we return the sanity to society?
Yeah.
I'm not sure what the answer is. Maybe it has to be biblical. I don't know. It might have to be, because I don't have the answers in my mind, my brain, what I can think. But there's got to be something that I'm hoping that I'm not thinking of, that I don't know that's going to happen, and I don't know what that is. But something needs to happen here fast and
Well,
soon.
that's the problem, I guess, is that we're always looking, our brains want resolution. We want to know why. When you hurt yourself, you want to know how that happened and what is it? What happened? What happened? My husband's always like, I hear that all day. People come in with their hurt back or neck and they're just like, what did I do? We want to know how we got here and what to do about it and what's going to happen. And the reality is we may not, like this may be a transition into a whole new world that and they're certainly pushing it hard, um, with the whole face of life as we know it, defunding the police, the way I just got a text from a friend this morning, which is not unusual. This happens a couple times a week. And he sent a text that said someone got stabbed on the bike path in Venice, in Santa Monica. I mean, this is Santa Monica, it's like a really high end, beautiful tourist destination. They got stabbed on riding their bike. And it's like, this is just life now. This is just life now. And you don't go out after dark. That's life. And the whole idea of, they don't want us to be autonomous anymore. They don't want us to own our own businesses anymore. They're starting to really crack down and make it difficult for small business owners. And it's just, that's the direction they want. And my girlfriend said, who's they? She's like, who's they? And I said, these are real people. This is a real thing. This is a global government that we did not elect many of these people. And there's a bunch of 3-letter agencies that support this global government. This is real. It was on the cover of Time magazine not that long ago, called The Great Reset. These are not conspiracies anymore. They were back in the day when you and I were talking about them, but they're not anymore. These are real things, and they want us to live in that way. So this voting system, just to go back to that really quickly, the voting system has changed, and the conservatives or Republicans or whatever you want, the other party wasn't onto it. They didn't realize that this system they had rigged it to change. They rigged it so that it would work in their favor, and it's not going to change now. I don't think Carrie Lake's going to get anywhere with her affidavits and her evidence. I really don't. I think it's going to get swept under the rug the way that 2020 did. But what's going to happen now is the conservatives are onto it, and now they're going to start harvesting ballots, which is illegal. And they're going to start playing their, if you can't beat them, join them. And then next election, which is going to be, they're all going to be big up until 2024. Then we're going to have people losing their minds because they're going to see the fraud happening to their side. And they're going to be like, That's not possible.
Yeah,
We
right.
saw we have the affidavits, and we're all going to be sitting here like, because
Mhm.
it's going to come for you. It's going to come for you when you want censorship, when you don't like those naughty words that whoever is saying on Twitter and you want them censored and you're okay with that. It's going to come back around for
Yeah,
you. And when
yeah.
it does, there's nothing you can do about it. And, people have not read Animal Farm and it shows. Like people have not read Animal Farm or 1984
Yeah,
and it
yes.
really shows.
Yeah, yeah, true. And so, and the interesting part too is there's things out there where I've seen videos and clips of let's say Democrats saying that the elections were rigged. Back in the day when the elections weren't going their way. They're saying that there is an opportunity for elections to be rigged or to be tampered with, and now it's
Yeah,
the cleanest. And when they win, it's the cleanest elections ever.
exactly.
And so for me, it's not one side or the other as it is. It's just that again, they're talking on both sides of their face.
Well,
So
I'm sure that there's been cheating going on forever,
yeah,
for
exactly.
sure.
Yep.
But it was the inception of the machine, which we never had, and then
Hmm.
the inception of mail-in ballots because of COVID.
Yep.
That's now going to stay forever,
Yep.
forever. There's
Yep.
no way that's changing,
Yeah.
except in Florida, maybe. Maybe Florida will change
Yeah.
their, but yeah. So
It's like a lot of things that we've recently discovered. It's not that it's new. It's just been going on for a long time under our noses, but now there's an awareness. And as soon as you
yeah.
become aware of it, all of a sudden it's real. It's new. No, this stuff's been going on for a long time. We're just now becoming aware of it, which is good news, like you say, because now even with this, because of what happened in 2020 in Arizona, for example,
Mhm.
2022 was under heavy scrutiny. Now, as you said, it could end up being the same thing, but
Mhm.
I'm sure there's lots of legislation and there's a lot more eyeballs and there's a lot more people watching. And now
Hope
they
so.
can't do these things under the cover of darkness anymore, like because
Hmm.
we were at the sleep at the wheel and like you do whatever you want. We're not even paying attention. Now more and more eyes are starting to calm. It's making harder and harder for them to pull off not just cheating in the elections, but all kinds of things. Now we're watching them very closely and being the
Yeah.
citizens we should have been in the first place, which is
Yeah.
well educated, understand what our government's doing for us with our money. But
Hmm.
like I said, we fell asleep at the wheel, assumed they were doing the best for us. And now some of us are finding out, oh my God, that was the last thing that they were doing. We screwed up big time. And now we got to turn the tables back around, which takes some time when they've been doing this for, 40, 50, 60, 70, 100 years, depending
Yeah,
on how
I
you look at
mean,
it.
imagine, I mean, of course you've got children, so like I just feel so bad for these parents who were trusting the school boards and trusting their
Mm-hmm.
principals and trusting all these heads of their, school departments and stuff and just like, yeah, they've got it down, it's cool. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, they've infiltrated on the lowest levels of local government and
Yeah.
schools. And now we have to do something about it. And it seems, yeah, that's scary. That's really scary. Um, but yeah, wow.
I think now the big word I use all the time, because this is where we are now and where we're going, because you mentioned the world is going to look a lot different here in the future. And I think it's going to look good in the end, but I think in the meantime, in the midterm, and I've said this for a long time, that is going to look ugly. It's going to be, like I said, like a detox. The biggest
Yeah,
detox you've ever had. What does that look like? It's not fun. It's ugly. You go through lots of emotions. A lot of things happen. But if you make it out the other side, things look so much brighter for yourself in terms of your body, how your mind functions, all those kinds of things. And we're going through this
yeah.
giant attempted global detox of this quote unquote cabal. And this is the biggest detox we've ever had to go through. And here's the thing, and this has been true for I think since the beginning of time, and it's going to be even more true now, is that the people that survive are the people that learn how to adapt or know how to adapt. There's that
Yes,
old saying, adapt or die.
yes.
Happened to the dinosaurs, whatever else you want to see, this went
Mm,
extinct, just went the way of the dinosaur. If you do not learn to adapt with your finances, with your health, with your relationships, with all these things, with your family, if you can't do that, these are the people that unfortunately are going to be left behind in one way or the other. You have to
yeah,
be ahead of the game, which is tough to do, but you have to be informed. You can't be just a drone watching Netflix, watching the mainstream media. You'll never be ahead. You'll be so far behind, and that's what they want you to be. But if
hmm,
you don't learn how to adapt now, and the people that haven't learned how to adapt that just took the government's advice, now we're starting to see the consequences of that.
hmm,
And unfortunately, people are becoming disabled. People are dying because of the miracle cure or medicine that Big Pharma said they would serve up to us that was going to save us all, which has done the exact opposite. So
hmm.
people like you and me, for example, that maybe have learned to adapt to some of the stuff. No, we're not doing that. We're we're going to do it this way, and we've started to kind of pull ourselves out of the systems as much
Hmm.
as you can, right? Pull yourself out of the healthcare system as much as you can. Pull yourself out of, I mean, you have to use the financial system to an extent, but learn how it works. I mean, there's lots of ways we can pull ourselves out of these systems to a degree. And you don't have to live completely off grid on a dirt road in the middle of nowhere if you want. Well, I mean, you're probably adapting better than anyone else, but those are things that we need to consider going forward, because the world's not going to be the same in all the different types of markets and industries.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's going to be. I mean, I don't want to think that the globalists have a hand up. Like, I'm hearing different things from different
Yeah.
sources. I'm hearing on one end that um, they have lost control. They know that the majority of people are not on board with the green passes and with, I heard they were sneakily trying to make it so that the mandates, um, you can't travel without vaccination, like a green pass,
Yeah.
and that they signed that, or somebody, I don't even know. I think it was
There's some declaration, and I don't know what a declaration means, but at the WHO recent
the
WHO
WHO. It
meeting,
was
I
the
think it
WHO.
was, yeah, they made a declaration basically
Yeah,
that you would need digital, that they would work together to have digital
digital.
IDs. Yeah.
Yeah. And we already know what Italy did all in the spring. We already know. I mean, we're seeing people rise up in the millions. And I said
Brazil.
to Brazil, and I said to my girlfriend who's in Rome, she moved from here, and I said, all the dock workers and the truckers and stuff, they all protested and went on strike. And I said, and what happened? What came of it? They docked their pay. They did all kinds of horrible things. And she said, no. She said, they did do horrible things. She said, but there were small victories. Same thing with the Canadian convoy, right? With the trucker convoy. I thought that it ended really bad. And then I heard, I think Georgie Dinkoff said, no, he said, actually, really good things happened because of it. Yeah, it wasn't the big, aria that we all wanted,
Mm,
where America joined and there was trucks across the whole nation stopped in the street and everybody, when the bad guy dies. It wasn't that. But
yeah.
because of it, there were small victories that are going to lead up and pave the road. So I'm hearing from some people that they've lost control, that we're going to say the globalists have lost control of their agenda. And now they're going to start to really make things harder. Like, they're going to really try to crash the economy.
Mm,
They're going to really try to get away with as much as they can. And it's
yep.
it's looking like that in every country, just about. Like
Yeah.
here with Biden and the investigation, even though it may not go anywhere now,
Yeah.
it may, prove to turn out to be something. So yeah, I'm just sad for the people who think this is a two-sided issue, and who think that the other side is the enemy, and
Yeah.
they don't see the powers that be. They don't see what they're trying to accomplish here.
Yeah.
That's the sad part still to me,
Yeah. The and to clarify that, what I think you're saying, the political siding. I mean, there's a side, like I said, good versus evil. I'm picking the good side. That's the
for
side I'm
sure.
on, but I'm not picking necessarily a political side in terms of which one's better. We know that there's people that are on the evil side on both sides of the aisle. There's no doubt
Yeah.
about that. We could argue about who maybe has more patriots or who doesn't, but in the end, it is. I mean, the government should be working for us, which they clearly aren't. And like I said, talking about all these things that they're trying to do, and unfortunately, it's probably going to need to be a death by 1,000 paper cuts. I mean, we're not going to have just
Yeah.
one blow to blow at this monster. It's not. It's going to be just continually more paper cuts, more stabbings, whatever you want to call it, to bring down this monster. It's going to have to happen, and
Hmm.
it's not going to just be one big victory. And the other thing we got to realize too is that, and sometimes we forget this because we're watching the news and we're believing everything they say in the news, and some of it may be true, but as we know, a lot of it isn't even true. So it's like every time you look at something, it's like, is this true or false? That could be exhausting every day, having to determine, is this true or false? Can we just all tell the truth just so we
Yeah.
know what it is? But of course,
Right.
this isn't happening. So what do we see? We see the news and other things are going on, what these people are doing, and then people get down the rabbit hole, doing the research, and then they get so far down the rabbit hole that everything they dig up is that the world's going to end up in complete disaster. The planet's going to explode, because you can
Right.
start to think that way, right? When you go down those holes, and I've been
Yeah.
down those holes, I understand. But sometimes you got to come up for a breath of air, and then you're like, well, what victories have we accomplished here? And I've seen some people talk about the victories. I'm like, these are clear victories. These have been
Yeah.
happening, but they don't
Hmm.
report them on the news or anything big. So then we always just see the bad stuff coming in. It's like a movie, and we're not realizing, we're not offsetting that with perspective of, well, what good things have happened, because I've seen it. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff happening. There's a lot of stuff that they want to do. There's a lot of stuff, like you said, they're going to push hard to do, like spoiled children that got their candy taken away. They're not going to have it anymore.
Yeah.
They're going to throw the biggest fit ever. Unfortunately, these guys, people have fingers on bombs and other stuff. So it's a little bit
Yep.
different than your toddler. But the same breath, they're going to try
Yeah,
to rub this off. But
Zelensky.
right. So
Right?
we have all these. So we know they're pushing that direction.
Yeah.
But I also, like I said, also I've seen many victories on their side. They're showing them that they're being well, a lot of things are being demonetized. Some of these big companies are, right? We're not supporting them anymore. So they're being
Right.
neutered. They're being neutered to an extent, but they're going to go out fighting. So we're in the middle of this epic battle of us trying to drag them down. They had the ultimate power. I don't think they have the power that a lot of people think they have, but I think
Hmm.
they still obviously hold some semblance. And probably the biggest power they hold is still the mind control of the people.
Yeah.
That's the biggest power. They still control what they tell us, what they're going to do, trying to get us to accept, like they always do, predictive programming, tell us something and kind of float it out there. So like, oh, the digital passes, okay, we're going to be all doing digital passes now. I'm like, stop, reject that. See, you can see that it's there, and they want to bring it out, but start to reject it in your mind. This is where it starts. Reject. No, not doing that. Anyone says this to me, I'm like, I always tell them the same thing. I'm like, no, I'm completely rejecting. I'm not doing the past. I'm not doing this stuff. I don't know what's going to happen, but I immediately reject it because that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
You can go, as one of my favorite sayings is, you can go piss up a tree. I'm not doing this stuff. Forget it. We're not doing that. But a lot of us just, after a while, we see enough of this bad stuff going on and we think about, we know what they're trying to do. We start to accept it in our minds. And if you start to accept it in your mind, then you're going to start to accept it in your reality not long after.
Right.
We have to kind of learn to see it. We know it's there, but reject the fact that it's going to happen and say, no, we're paving a different way. I don't know how it's going to happen, but we're doing
Right.
it.
I mean, this is what, I've been telling my mom because my mom gets really depressed and angry about all of it. And then when I try to have a conversation with her, it always ends up very heated because she ends up saying, I don't want to know. I don't want to
Mhm.
know what they're doing. I don't want to believe that these people who are in control of our lives are bad because it really is depressing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I get that. I get that. It's a very childlike position to take. Close your eyes. It's not there. La 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 la. That's not okay. And for you to just acknowledge it and pray about it or meditate against it, pray against it, or like you said, just repeat it. Just say, I reject that. And you don't even have to wallow in it, but acknowledging it,
Yeah.
that I know I've said this before. The quantum physics discovery of looking at a molecule. I know I'm saying this completely wrong. Looking at whatever you're looking at in this electron microscope, an electron, it changes as you observe it, right?
Mm.
Because you observed it, it
Yes.
changes. I
Yep.
forget, I wish I could say it better. I know I sound probably stupid to people who know exactly how to say it, but the point is we have scientific evidence that shows that when you put your eye on it, when you observe something, you have the ability, I don't know how,
Yep.
to alter the outcome or to alter its state. Now, I know that's quantum mechanics, but I think that's kind of the basics of all of what we are. And if you can, that's what prayer is about. You may not be able to change the outcome of Zelensky faking that that Russia launched a missile, but you can acknowledge that it happened, and you can even say, I don't know, I don't like it, I reject it, I pray against it.
Yep.
That matters. And collectively, as a human organism, all of us together, those things make changes. I really think that's true.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree in that. And I understand exactly what you're saying. Again, I can't say it any better. But the quantum physics, like I said, the observation of it can change the
Hmm.
circumstances of it. And
Hmm.
so, like I said, they know this. They know the power of the mind. They know what we're doing. They know how to manifest whatever it is you want to say. And they know that's why they put these things in the news, to put these things in our minds so that we accept
Right.
them, right? And that's why I say you have to consciously say, I reject that. Period. Whether and if you really believe it, like I reject it, I'm not doing that. Like I do. Like some people say, this digital pass is coming. I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm 100% rejecting it. This is not going to be part of my life. And I say that with all the confidence in the world, not
Yeah.
knowing that I can do it, but that's what it is in my head. I'm like, I reject that. Forget it. This is not
Right.
happening. And like you said, the same thing with my mom said the exact same thing to me. I don't
Mm.
want to believe this. I want to believe that people are good, this and that. I'm like, that, like I said, and then like I said, but you can take an adult view of it, or you can take a childlike view. And again, I get it. I don't want to know this either. I
I
really
don't
didn't.
either.
But I guess some of us are built differently, where it's like we want justice so bad, we want to know the truth so bad that we're going to search for it no matter how hard it may seem. Because to us, maybe it's to me, actually, even though it's hard sometimes, it's actually comforting that I know, because I don't like deception. I
Yes.
don't like people who aren't who they are, who are they're not transparent. That's why I don't like career politicians, because they're never transparent with any of the stuff that they're doing. I just want transparent, real, truthful people. And that way, at least I know whether I interact with someone or I don't. Just let me know who you are. If you're good, bad, or ugly, okay, you're ugly. Good enough. I don't want to interact with you. Thanks for letting me know. Good,
Hmm.
great. But everyone wants to pretend, and not just politicians. I mean, we all know, we talk about social media, everyone wants to pretend to be something, maybe that they aren't. And I thought if we are all just more truthful and more authentic, we can navigate this world so much easier, because we know the things to avoid, things that don't resonate with us, things that do.
Yeah.
But this is all part of the human experience. And like I said, observing what it is that you want. And like I said, praying what you want or visualizing what you want. I mean, these all things are just different variations of the same type of thing, trying to
Hmm.
affect that matter to be what you want it to be. And we can call this woo woo if you want. We called meditation 10 years ago woo woo. And now who's all doing meditation?
Yeah.
Everybody. It become acceptance, hasn't it? Like, think about that 10, 15 years ago, depending where you were in the region. Maybe in California it was a little bit more, but more accepted at the time because of the region. Different regions accept things at different times. But overall, there's been a huge acceptance of that practice now compared to there was
Yeah.
10, 15 years ago, because you can't do that. You can't change your mindset. You can't change the outcome of your day just by sitting silently. And we're like, no, actually, we've figured this through practice now, that we can do this, and this is our experience. So we have sometimes
Hmm.
just have to leave our minds open to these things, because we'll find that there's a whole world out there that we have no idea that was there, that we could create if we
Yeah.
really wanted to.
Oh yeah. I mean, I had this prophetic minister on my show, and just yesterday, and she her name is Charlene Body, and I came across her in a very interesting way because of my friend Michael Matucci, who works with children who survivors of sex trafficking, and that's how he knows her. Anyway, she was talking about the gifts that we were designed to have, like as creatures of God, like how that, and they involve some pretty spectacular things, not just sitting in, like Buddhism is accept things as they are, not as you would like them to be.
Mm,
And that's the basis of like Buddhism is like accept, observe, accept, do not react, do not covet, do not avert, do not, you know crave.
right.
And she was like, oh no, honey, she's like, we're designed to heal our bodies, we are designed to heal others, we are designed for wisdom and
Mm-hmm.
knowledge, and that you can't even begin to fathom.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, so now we're getting on board with the meditation. Imagine in 10, 15, 20 years, if everybody starts to recognize that we have these God-given, we know we have inalienable rights, God-given
Right.
rights.
Right.
Now, what if we embrace that we have God-given gifts, all
Mm-hmm.
of us, like every single person, whether you're a believer or not, to actually hone in on those and then start to change your reality, change your body, heal your body. I mean, that stuff, it starts to sound woo woo, but
Mm-hmm.
the more that COVID has really pushed me in. I'm not going to say COVID, I'm going to say from Trump's administration.
Mm-hmm.
It has really pushed me further into the supernatural
Mm.
because I feel very helpless I feel like I can't do anything. And the reality is I can't.
Yeah.
I have no control. I can't do anything about the outcome of, the Maricopa County. I have no control over that
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
I can't even participate in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so like I have just really dove in to the supernatural. And I don't mean like ghosts and stuff, but I mean like
Yeah.
meditating on transcending my flesh, and
Yes.
and transcendence, and working with the flesh, because and we can segue here, um of course, if you have anything to add to that, but we could segue into the mud packing stuff, because you
Mm.
that was the episode that got lost that you and I did. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's probably one of the most valuable topics that you and I will probably ever cover. But I'll let you comment on what I just said about, when you feel helpless, and some people can say, and I say, I turn to God. But some
Mm-hmm.
people who maybe don't really believe in that, or believe in Jesus, or believe in the Bible, they can start by saying, I believe that there is more than this
Yeah.
flesh. You can
Yeah.
start there. And I want to know what my gifts are. What are my supernatural gifts? I want to know. I want to be a
Mhm.
superhero. Of course, you always
That's
talk
right.
about that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's my gig. So yeah, I mean that would be a quantum leap if people could start to believe the amount of power that they have, or if they understood how much power they have. And I've been through
Yeah.
all this stuff, and I'm not claiming to be the ultimate power, but I do claim that I've been able to tap into powers that we'll say are not my own, but I've learned how to tap into them to a
Hmm.
degree that's allowed me to heal 13 chronic disease conditions, for example, when a doctor and everyone else said, you can't do that. I'm like,
Hmm.
says who? Again, I that was one that actually before I even knew what I was doing, I rejected immediately. You have rheumatoid arthritis, you're gonna live with this for the rest of your life. No. In my mind, it was no, not happening. I'm gonna die
Mm.
or I'm gonna be the healthiest human on the planet. This is what's gonna happen. And I'm no different than anybody else in terms of like so the gifts that my body's been given and what I can do, and that it just naturally, it's always leaning towards healing or homeostasis for a healthy, happy, person. But there's
Hmm.
been so many things in the system and all the systems that have warped our bodies that have created all these health issues. I
Hmm.
don't think we'd even have food allergies or any of these things if we didn't have all these poisons in our environment, in our food, our water, and everything, because all this food that's been given to us by nature would be naturally healing. We wouldn't have all these aberrations with what we can eat and what we can't.
Right,
But we
right.
have had all this warping, so then that screws everything up. So now everyone has to adapt in terms of what kind of foods they can eat, and also, gluten's the enemy, and all this kind of stuff starts to happen. And I get it, but this is because of what's happened.
Hmm.
So I think that I talked about the dollar before. That's just one example, and that's not a supernatural power, for example. But people have way more power than they think to change and shape society if they use that fiat dollar. If they
Yeah.
use that dollar to determine what the things they want into business, what they give their energy to is really what it
Yeah.
is. Money's a form of energy. Give your energy to someone else, that thing's going to grow. If you
Yeah.
don't, you withdraw it, that thing's going to contract. And that's what we saw with some of these companies that have
Hmm.
contracted over the years. And I don't know that too many have grown over the last little bit, but some of these companies have started to contract. And now we're starting to see how that's changing things. And we don't know the ultimate ending of that, but give it a couple years, we'll probably find out.
Yeah.
So I think it is a big deal. I think, in my opinion, a lot of people give away their power to other
Yeah.
things, and I'm like, it's nice to respect and praise and other people that have done things that you want to do or they have these powers. But I think most people are like, listen, folk, you have that power. You just haven't learned how to access or harness it yet. And that can take some time. But I think with what's happening here, this is probably the good thing, the silver lining of what's happening. I think a lot of people are turning inwards or turning to
Yeah.
God or to Buddha or to source or to nature or the universal, so whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter to me. But more people are turning to that because they realize they're out of control. And I think that's a good thing. That's moving
Hmm.
us in the right direction. And if you
Yeah.
don't believe it, if you don't believe that you have the power that those kinds of universe source nature is helpful for our overall well-being, go out and camp for 2 weeks, shut off your TV, turn off your cell phone, do nothing, and go out and camp in the woods where you're comfortable, and go out and sit in the forest for 2 weeks and come back and tell me that you don't feel like you've had a reset.
Hmm.
Mindset wise, body wise. Some people say you can reset your circadian rhythm by going out and being in nature, being grounded, being around nature, for 2 weeks, and you could completely reset yourself. I don't
Hmm.
think anyone, obviously, if you're very anxious and stressed, this can happen. But let's compare. If you're anxious and stressed, you go out and you camp for 2 weeks and you lay in a tent or whatever, everything's comfortable, but you're out in nature. Compare to that if you're very stressed and you go to Vegas for 2 weeks. For me, the latter, for me personally, does not work. The overstimulation, the more of the same kinds of stuff, the EMFs, all the kind of stuff that I don't want. I'm not
Yeah.
grounded. Everything goes haywire. My nervous system is out of whack. You do go into nature, all that stuff changes. And that's
Hmm.
that's just an example of how you physically could go out somewhere where, we talk about God and things we not necessarily can see. We can go into nature and do these things, and we know how we feel. This is why we go on walks. This is why we love the beach in these
Yeah.
places, because of how they feel to us, the frequency that matches ours.
Yeah, exactly. That's so well said. Actually, it's called, at least in the Bible, it's called general revelation. And it's the
Mm,
way that God reveals himself to us is through nature, or that's one of the
mm.
ways. And
Okay.
so like we go out and it's like you have like, you stand on the precipice of the Grand Canyon, you stand, in front of a waterfall, and you're just, or you see a whale in the ocean and you're just like, oh, and
Yeah.
it resets you because I think there's this quality because I told you I was at the hurricane in Florida, and there was this incredible thing that happened. I don't know how many natural disasters you've been in, but I've been ticking the boxes through my
None.
life. Well, good for you. But there's something that happens that's similar to what happens when you see something like a waterfall or the Grand Canyon, is like it's awe-inspiring. You feel it humbles you, which I think is an
Mhm.
incredible virtue. It's incredible quality for every human to have and to work towards,
Yes.
is humility. And when you feel so insignificant, when you are looking at 120-mile-an-hour winds and you're sitting in an enclosed porch and you're like, OMG, it's
Yeah.
like, and is this going to get worse? Is the roof going to come off the top of my house? Did we make the wrong decision? Is my dog going to die because we made a stupid decision? Or, or your children, or me, loss of life and limb, and there's this awe to it. There's this like terror, but
Yeah.
then there's just this like almost like surrender, because you feel so small. And I think that sounds self-deprecating, but I think it's where we should always behave from. We should have a posture of humility like that all the time. If everybody could manage to do that every morning, I know I try very hard, to get up in this city, this crazy city, and walk outside and have a posture of humility, it totally changes how you feel about your liberal neighbor.
Yes. Yes.
It just changes things.
Yeah.
And that's the power. I think when we think power, we think, oh, we're like have this supernatural, like a godly power,
Yeah.
when actually a posture of humility is where we begin from, or where I think is wise to begin from, to then start to change your life. But you said going out, I have Dr. Medici, who I've had on my show in the past many times, passionate powerhouse of a human, like so on fire. And he says it's not enough. I mean, you're saying go for 2 weeks for sure. People should all do that. But he's like, we need to all move now. He's like, we need to
Mm.
get if you're in California, go get a yurt in Topanga Canyon. He's like, we need to get out of the cities. And he gets so dramatic about it. He's like, you don't understand the assault that is happening. You see the assault because the guy got stabbed on the boardwalk, but there is the frequencies, the electromagnetic frequencies, the energy of people that are
Mm.
constantly off their circadian rhythm and off of their vibe, their healthy vibe.
Yeah.
You're dealing with that every day. Trauma, coming in contact with people that have so much trauma, including your own, pollution, the water, the air, everything. He's like, is an assault anymore. There is no escape now unless you leave. You pick up and you leave. And just to put a nail in that, I was in for the hurricane. My husband and I had to I had to stay 2 weeks longer, because we arrived to a brand new house that we had never seen in live with our own eyes. And we arrived on Sunday and we were going to furnish it. It's a rental. We were going to furnish it and do all the things and then come back. We arrived Sunday. The hurricane happened on Wednesday night. And there was not, you couldn't even get Amazon packages, nothing. Even afterwards, there's no power, the
Mm.
trees blocking the roads, like it was just not going to happen. So I had to stay and he came back. I mean, no power, uh raining, rainbows, thunder. I mean, the hurricane was gone now. Wildlife, lizards, hawks, birds, beautiful egrets in my front yard, dragonflies, and I didn't have anything to do but wait until things started up again. And
Mm-hmm.
I did have a reception, so I was like Marcoing my FaceTiming my family, and I had taken some screenshots because there was like dragonflies and stuff while I was talking. And I went back to look at those photos and I was like, I don't know if I've ever seen myself so relaxed. My face,
Mm.
I just was like, I was so happy and
Mm.
just chill. And I was going to bed at night and sleeping, and it was quiet because all you could hear was the rare generator in the distance because people
Right.
didn't have power.
Right.
And I was like, I just need to move here because this is the closest thing to peace that I have had in years.
Yeah.
And oh, it's just I long for that now,
Yeah.
And yeah, it's
Yeah.
a city, it's Sarasota, it's a decent sized city with a lot of people, but it's not LA.
Yeah, yeah, well, no doubt. And you got a taste of that alignment. Like
Yeah,
the doctor says, when you get in nature, that's your natural alignment. That is, you jive together with nature. The alignment's there, the frequencies there. Where all these alternative frequencies we deal with, like I said, in Vegas, if you want to use an example, or even Los Angeles, where we have 5G, we have EMFs, we have all this stuff going on. We're not grounded. We're walking around in soles or shoes that aren't keeping us grounded to the earth. I would agree with the doctor that we do need to move, as much as possible, go back to maybe a more agrarian type route, not meaning that we all have to go back and be farmers, but get more back to those old
as
days where we
close
weren't
as
in
we
concentrated
can.
cities. Yeah, as close as you can. And not everyone's gonna be able to do it perfectly. Some people might be able to go completely off grid, and that's awesome. Good for you. And some
Yeah,
people maybe can't. Maybe it's something as simple as eliminating, or moving to an area where there isn't, 5G 2 blocks away. That might be a huge improvement for you, for example, because that just scrambles us all day long.
yeah,
And so this is, and I understand because I come from the country. I lived in a farm where there wasn't, there was power and stuff, but there wasn't much of any of those things. And I had a great life there. I mean, I was grounded all the time. I was out in nature all the time. It was great. And
yeah,
I love some things about the city, but I also love some things about the country. And to me, is trying to find obviously the balance there. But I wouldn't disagree with them because we've been attacked from every single angle, and that's
yeah,
where I go back to the warping of our bodies. They've no longer become aligned. You can start to align them. This is where you have to change your food, your water, your lifestyle, where you live, your environment. All those things need to change into where you get more in tap with that frequency. Let's say,
yeah.
but you use a great word there. The one word that I love humility. I think it's like
Mm,
this, it's like one of the greatest things that someone could do is humble themselves and have humility. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to lack confidence. Sometimes people might mistake
right.
that humble humility, like, oh, I'm just a little meek little person. Doesn't mean that. You can have extreme, like you have confidence in your creator or whatever you have. You have that confidence, but you're humble.
Yeah,
It's like I'm all that in a bag of chips, but I know what's bringing it to me. It's not me necessarily. It's what I'm tapped into, right? And you can
yeah,
have that confidence. That's okay. Not a cocky confidence, but a confidence in yourself and who you are and the powers you have. But in that humility, there's not enough humility. Too many people. Why? Because too many people are operating out of their ego full time. There's no
and
humility
fear,
in there. And fear,
and fear.
exactly. All those things, right? And there's absolutely no humility in that. Humility comes when you start to, like I said, become more aligned with nature. Like you said, after the hurricane, all these things you see, the dragonflies, all that stuff. This is a humbling experience and a
Yeah,
great experience, right? And the other
yeah,
thing, that isn't it a passage somewhere? I mean, I don't understand my passages well at all, but isn't something like the meek shall inherit the earth?
yeah.
This
Matthew.
is the
Yeah, the
meek we're
Sermon on the
talking about,
Mount.
right?
Right.
Which you could say is the humble.
Yes.
And they're going to inherit. So if that's true, why are we going to inherit the earth? Why are these other people? And then that actually maybe gives you a little bit more hope that if we're going to inherit the earth, then we're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Like some of us might be, but some of us who are really believe in that and are grounded in that, we're
Yeah.
not going anywhere. You other people who aren't the meek, who are the controlling, the corrupt, you're the ones that are out of here. We're
Hmm.
staying because we're inheriting this place, but you're leaving.
Right.
So I always
Yeah.
like to kind of draw
Amen.
on that for myself, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's a posture that's difficult for people. It's the same posture that helps you work with clients really well because, you don't assume anything. You don't, you're not aggressive in your delivery. You treat people like you want to be treated,
Yeah.
almost like a child in a way where you would never aggressively yell at a child for being, I mean, not a healthy parent wouldn't, where if they're wrong or you make a mistake or you treat everyone the way you want to be treated. And that brings humility
Mhm.
on its
Mhm.
own because
Mhm.
you're most people are precious unto themselves so much, so you're like, I don't want to be yelled at. I don't want to be condescended against. I don't want to be, any of these things. And that is, it's hard to do. It's really easy. And I think having my Facebook group, the estrogen dominant support group, has really taught me so much because if you went to my high school friends, I don't think back in the day they would not say I was a humble person. They would definitely not say that. So it's something that I really feel like I have acquired over the years
Mhm.
because, out of fear and insecurity, you're like, I know this and I know that. I know more, you come across as a know-it-all and no one likes that person.
Yeah.
Nobody likes someone who knows everything or thinks they
Mhm.
do.
Yeah.
And so working towards that posture, I think is one of the most important things that people can do. And yeah, having my group, it's like if I get it, when I first had the group, if I get in there and I'm not humble with my information, it starts fires everywhere. Maybe not right then, but
Yeah.
I have to really cultivate that group. I have to like really nurture the members and myself and everyone together. And so when someone is a jerk, you have to be a big jerk to get blocked from my group. Like you
Mm.
have, because I will first try to resolve it, and try to be like, okay, well, and the way that I say things, like I try so hard. Now I don't always succeed, and I'm sure I still fail a lot, but it's just taught me so much about how to treat your fellow person. You don't know what they're like. You don't know what's going on in their life that made
Yeah.
them lash out at you. And that's just the golden rule. That's just the original golden rule that every religion, every belief system, every every culture has, which is treat others the way you want to be treated. And
That's right.
that's just, so basic, but it's so precious too.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to, because you and I just get on such a roll and I love it. I want to like segue a bit into keep the supernatural vibe about our bodies as energy and grounding, and then start to talk about the whole mud packing thing. Are you using the mud packing at all?
Yeah, I still am. Yeah. I mean, when I initially started doing it, I did it probably for 6 months of the year, 2 or 3 times a week.
Wow.
Because as usual with the things that I do, I always decide when I'm doing it, I'm doing it. I don't. I've said many times, I don't do things half-assed. I do them full-assed.
Right.
I
The
was
whole
doing.
ass.
I was into it, and I was really enjoying it and seeing a lot of benefits from it. And then I slowed down a bit. I still have some though, and I do it maybe a couple times a month now. I'll do things. I mean, I don't feel like I need to do it as much.
Yeah.
But even the process is very grounding outside of the other things that it does do. But that's a
Yeah.
great example, especially when winter comes and depending where you live, your ability to ground naturally, let's say through your hands, your feet in the soil or the sand or grass or whatever, can be minimized. I mean, I could I do this? Sure, I could dig out a hole in the snowbank and go stand with my bare feet and freeze them off, and then maybe have other injuries, but get grounded. But I don't really want to do that. So
Mhm.
thought of other ways that I can use technologies, or I can use things like this, where I might not be physically grounded to the earth, but I'm putting grounding material on me, especially when you're stuck indoors.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of their plan too, is keeping people stuck indoors and in that depression, anxiety that comes with it, not being outdoors and being stuck in closed quarters and things that are in our home, the environment, the things that we're inhaling. We're not grounded anymore. The sun
Sedation,
goes away.
just sitting for hours and
Right,
hours and
exactly. Like
hours.
there's nothing really good that can come of that being stuck that way.
Mm.
And you add in all this other stuff that's going on as well. It's just ripe for disaster. But yeah,
Yeah.
the mud stuff for me is even if you can't go camping, to me it's like that's a great thing. If you can start putting some of this mud in your body, it does, I don't there's some strange sensation, other than all the other things it does, because that's just one thing. The flow and obviously removal and of drawing things off your body as well that are toxic. But there's a
Mm.
real grounding feeling to that, sort of like there would be if you just went out and you literally thought you were or pretend you were a pig and you just started rolling around the mud and got all that mud all over your body. How
Yeah.
grounding would that feel if
Yeah.
you're in a natural environment? It'd feel very grounding.
Yeah. I hadn't, I kind of fallen away from it. In fact, even when I kind of introduced it to you, hadn't done it in a long time. And in rare instances, I would do it. And I kept thinking about you doing it, and I was like, I should probably start doing it again. And then I forgot about it. But something happened so first of all, for listeners who don't know, because I haven't talked about this in years,
Mm,
basically it's mud therapy. I mean, it's mud packing, but we'll call it mud therapy, where you take this particular kind of mud, which is an ionic mud. It's from lava, and it's has tons of minerals in it. It has ionic charge to it. It's a powder, and I just heard somebody fall or something fall right behind me. And so you basically, it's got this ionic charge. You put liquid in it. You can put different types of fluid to make like what's called a mud pack or a little mud patty. And you can mud pack injuries, old, infection sites, everything. But you begin, and I've used it on, you name it. I've used it on vaccine injured children. I've used it on pregnant women, their C-section, I mean, not their C-section, the epidural scars on their backs,
mm,
because it's these pinpointed injuries that can reflex throughout the body. So
yes.
big blunt injuries can have this kind of effect, like when you break your collarbone, it can certainly have what they call a splat effect when you when you have a blunt, big injury that's non-specific. But the injuries that seem to really, really linger for people come from like incisions, injections, because it's hitting like specific meridians in the
Hmm.
body, right?
Hmm.
And so that's why an epidural shot in the spine can reflex to women and have like lower back pain or even have like cervical issues up in their neck and all kinds of stuff. So I've done tons of those, lots and lots of stuff, seen it do. I saw a nonverbal child with cerebral palsy sit up and say apple, who had not spoken since she was a little tiny toddler, and she had an injury and fell. And anyway, long and the short of it is we mud packed her injury, and in the middle of it she was getting some sunlight and we were sitting outside, and we took the mud off of her, and someone brought some sliced apples out, and she sat up and she said apple, and everyone was like, her mom started crying. So
Wow, of
it
course.
can be, yeah, it's what's happening with the mud, which is so cool, is that it can like turn on the lights. It
Hmm.
can, where these injuries can create shorts in our energetic body, the
Yep.
same things that a acupuncturist would work on. You get these shorts, and like if you could put on a pair of energetic glasses and look at a person's body, like your body or my body, and just see their energetic meridians, you would see all this light going like freeways across the body, but
Hmm.
there would be darkened spots in certain
Yep.
areas where you've had injury, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
the mud essentially turns those lights back on, or it can to some degree. It's kind of like if you break a tongue depressor, wooden stick, and you try to put it back together, it'll never be the same.
Yeah.
But the mud helps create the charge again, which
Yeah.
is what I think is so fascinating about it.
Yeah. The charge. I like that.
Charge.
And,
Yeah.
and think about it that way too. Like, so there could be weakened meridians, there could be maybe severed meridians, that, and people, like you say, that has this effect where an injury one place could show up in a completely separate place, and you may not realize that the two are actually
Yeah.
associated because you might not understand meridians and the connection between the gallbladder and where that else could show up inside the body. It might show up in your hips, and you're like, I got a hip problem. Maybe it's a gallbladder problem. Maybe we need to work on the flow there, right? That's one example of
Yeah.
where there's this not able to piece it together because conventional medicine segregates everything so much, whereas it's a kidney problem and that's all it is. How could it possibly only be a kidney problem? At this point, there's got to be other things that are likely going on. The
Yeah.
adrenals might have caused some of the issue. Who knows? Because they're closely related. But everyone doesn't realize how intricate this is, and this, as you call it, circuitry that's going throughout the body, and how the lights can go out, or it could be cut out in one place, and you're not receiving light in the other area, and then you can have depreciation or deterioration of your health. I
Yeah.
mean, I often use the example of a light where the lamp goes out and someone keeps on trying to change the light bulb. And they're like, I changed the
Yeah.
light bulb 3 times, but nothing's changing. And I'm like, I have no idea what's happening. The light's not working. It must be something like, the light bulb's the problem. And they look back and it's like, oh, realize it's not plugged in, or the cord severed back at the where the plug-in is, or something
Or
like
it's
that.
a little severed,
Or right,
right?
it's a little sever, right? So it's flickering or whatever. This is the kind of
Yeah.
example. You cut off that energy, that electricity to the bulb. The bulb's just the symptom of the problem. It's actually not the problem itself, and the source is at the core. And this happens to so many people. The symptom shows up one place, the source is somewhere completely different. But we've never been taught, not anywhere close to being taught, this type of information where we can start to piece that together along with other symptoms to understand what's happening. And the
So
grounding
good.
in the mud packs, like you say, I mean, again, if you want to go, we want to talk more about just energy, the energy from those packs, the frequency of those packs. If we could talk about all the nutrients in them and what they are, and we can call them all names. There's magnesium in there, and there's grounding clays and all this stuff they have, but it's earth material. It's a
Mm.
strong frequency. It resonates with us, and you being able to get under your skin is going to be able to draw off those positively charged molecules, or whatever you want to call them. And this is negatively charged. Draw that off of your body, open up those meridians, perhaps, like you said, open up the highway a little bit, get rid of some of the jams. And it might not be perfect, but we're not looking for perfection. We're looking for
Yeah.
progression first, and whatever we can achieve. And I've seen some great results of that. I mean, I've used it on my face in some cases, even to draw off maybe some of the dental, because I've had a lot of dental surgeries and a lot of dental procedures in my mouth. I can't
Mm.
imagine with all those needles in my mouth, all the stuff that might be on my cheeks, inside my tissues there. And even using that as an example, it's like, okay, I can maybe draw some of this off topically off my face, not even worry about my meridians at this point. If it were,
Mhm.
the other stuff happens, great. But I
Yeah.
could actually just draw this stuff off my body. And so I've used it in so many different types of ways, not
Hmm.
just myself, but also with clients. And it really is an amazing practice. I think more people
Yeah.
know about.
I think so too. Dr. Marshall used to say that the energetic meridians are not unto themselves. They're not separate from the lymph system, and they're not separate
Mm,
from the circulation. Like they all work together. So when we have those like darkened spots of energy or circuitry, that means that nutrition is not getting to that area
Yeah.
effectively. And so that's super fascinating too, because a lot of times people like myself, I noticed that, I had a pretty severe TBI head injury, and I broke the orbital bone right here, my right cheek. I broke my nose, and the whole right side of my body was affected by that. I didn't hit anything else. I just hit my head, my face. And then, the cysts that showed up on my ovaries on the right side,
Mm.
everything happens to me on the right side. And that might also be a function of being right-handed because you're
Yeah.
using the right side more. But
Yeah.
there is also some energetic, correlation there with being starved on the right side. Your gallbladder's on the right side. People that have broken their right collarbone, that tends to reflex to the gallbladder. A lot of times they'll have gallbladder issues, and you say, "Have you broken your collarbone?" They're like, "Yep." And men especially.
Mm.
But so I want to tell you a quick story just about what happened with me. So one of the things you do with mud packing, right, is they say you should always mud pack your hands and feet one at a time
Yeah.
before you do anything else. And I just always used to get annoyed with that because I felt like I never really saw the effects of not doing it versus doing it.
Yeah.
So I used to bypass it. Well, I just learned a really good lesson about this. It's similar to, Stop Chasing Pain, Peter Nicholson's Instagram and website. You should follow him. I think you do. He's incredible. He teaches lymph drainage.
Okay.
And he says, you can't just go and start dry brushing your lymph, your body, because you could have, especially these days, you could have a backup of toxicity. So you're poking at the lymph, which carries a lot of garbage. You're poking at it, and you're not doing it correctly. You could have like this backup, sewage backup type of thing. Same
Mm.
thing with the downloads and the mud packing is what I'm learning. So
Mm.
I had, I'm sure if Constantine is listening to this, he's going to laugh at me because I keep telling this damn story about my toe. So I had started this plate fit class, and I was wearing these toe socks, and I cut the inside of my toe. I have really like tender feet, and I cut the skin of my toe.
Mm.
And after that, you don't wear shoes in this class. You just wear these like socks. And
Yeah.
after that, it got infected. And then it turned into what I thought was athlete's foot. And then it turned into blisters. And then it turned into eczema. And then I've had it now for January will be a year. And I have done everything, including my gut stuff, everything. Then I got back for it. It really died down in Florida, believe it or not, in the midst of a category 4 hurricane. It died down. And I was in the water a lot in the ocean. And I was, like I said, grounded. And it died down a lot. I came home, and I'm telling you, I tried everything except mud packing. So when I get back here to LA, I'm like, oh my God, it's on my hands. And what it's called dyshydratic eczema. So it's like little tiny water blisters. It's not like the red
Mm.
peely stuff.
Okay.
And little tiny, and they itch at a 10, right? It's just like
Mm.
maddening. Well, then it's on my hands, and I'm seeing it all like little bubbles. I'm like, oh my God. I started freaking out, and I thought, hands and feet. I was praying about it, I was meditating about it, hands and feet, hands and feet. Downloads, my detox pathways are burdened, right? And
Yeah.
my downloads are closed. That's why it's trying to come out of my hands and feet.
Mm.
So I mud packed my hands and feet and immediately felt such relief because I stopped using all those meds they were giving me and stuff. Didn't
Mm.
help.
Yeah.
Mud pack hands and feet, immediate relief. Then I started on a program I was trying to do before, which was methylene blue and high dosing magnesium throughout the day, which, of course, for detox, we know is just incredible. But the methylene blue is supposed to help open your detox pathways.
Mm.
And tremendous. Like it's down to almost like 5% now on the
Mm.
toe where it started, and that's it. And I just couldn't believe that I had forgotten about the mud packing. I mean, the methylene blue is its own
Yeah.
story, but just to open up the pathways. And how many people, how many of your clients have a stagnant liver, have
Mm.
hormone issues, have gut issues, their motility in their bowels is terrible, and they've
Mm.
got swollen lymph everywhere. This is not unusual. This is super, super, super common. And this,
Yep.
I think, is the inflammatory issues everyone deals with but their bucket runneth over. It's like their toxic bucket is full. Mud packing for the win.
That's right. That's a great story. I'm glad you learned your lesson the hard way, but the good way of not opening up
I
those
know.
those
I could hear
sources,
Dr. Marshall down from the heavens. What is
right?
wrong with you,
What
woman?
were you doing?
You know this stuff, but
But
we know so much that we forget
right.
it.
And that's the exact point I was going to make. Some people get into their fields, right? And they focus on very specific things and drugs for specific things. If you're a doctor and maybe a naturopath, you focus on very specific things. But you and I, for example, I mean, I'll still speak for myself, but I know you're the same. We're Renaissance men and women, meaning we tackle a lot of different things. Like we're very holistic in our approach, all the way from nutrition to med packing. And when you learn all this stuff, it's great because you have all these things at your disposal, all these arrows in your quiver. But after a while, when you have hundreds of them, some of them you don't use for a while and you forget about them
Like,
pretty easily, right?
oh,
It's like, wait, I still had that one, right? It's like, I forgot about it. And that's why I say I usually go hard on them in the beginning, then they'll fall off. And then eventually, if they're good enough to me, eventually I'll remember about them again and they'll fold back into my plan somehow so that you have this kind of balanced plan where you use all these kinds of things. But that's the issue when you have so much stuff in your head and so many things that you could use. Sometimes you forget about out of the hundreds of things that maybe this is the one, as opposed to when you're very, narrow focused. The unfortunate part with them is, yeah, they remember the certain things, but they don't have access to all these other therapies that may or may not work. But mud
yeah,
packing, I agree with you. It's a huge one that many people are missing out on. Even for myself, I know that the same thing. I mean, when I started to get healthier and I was getting healthier day by day, and I managed to dig myself into some big holes. But after some stuff was left over, I'm like, why is this stuff not changing? Right. And there could have been a number of different things. But I think a lot of it was because of issues that I had, we'll say with my meridians, with my circuitry, where
yeah,
all that nutrition, which was completely on point when it comes to healing, was not traveling the highway. There was a distribution problem. I was making all this great food at my farm, but there was a distribution problem and I couldn't get it out of town to where it needed to go. And that was happening
right.
inside my body.
Supply
So
chain.
eventually you start to figure that out. It's a huge deal. Okay, now we can actually start to give that area, some of this nourishment, and that changes a lot of things. And a lot of people have a lot of blockages in their body, like you said, just based on some of the things we even know, even from injections. Most people have had them in their life, whether it's a child or otherwise, right? That's just one thing.
Yeah,
Most people probably have a scar or an injury site. Like usually don't go through life without any one of those things, and they can cause some big issues. And
yeah,
and for me, packing is one of the simplest, most effective, and even maybe most enjoyable ways to start to increase that flow, so those pathways start to open.
yeah. I think that's the whole concept behind like even just opening your downloads.
Mm.
Just that. It's kind of
Yeah.
like the concept behind a castor pack or sauna or supporting the liver with nutrition. It's
Yeah.
like it supports what that organ is supposed to already be doing because those are the pathways, aren't they? Like
Yeah.
it starts at the
Yes.
liver, the kidney, the gut, the lungs. Those are the detox organs, right? The skin, the liver, the kidneys, the lymph, although those are glands,
Yeah.
the bowel, and I forgot one, lungs. Anyway, and um, those are the pathways. That's where they begin. And so we need to support opening those. And I think that that is probably one of the most overlooked issues, health issues, is just, because people detox all day long, or they get on a liver flush, or they get on they do enemas, or they do, they take DIM, for example, diindolylmethane, to help detox the estrogens, and
Yeah.
they take calcium diglucarate, and I mean, it could go on and on, right? They take all the glutathione, NAC, and you
Yeah.
can take all of these things to encourage detoxification in the body. But if your detox pathways are closed, you've
Hmm.
got a backed up sewer system.
Yeah.
It's going to go somewhere, and most likely it'll go to the bowel. You'll recycle that. It'll come back as more toxic estrogen, or it'll come back. And that was one of the biggest things about COVID, was whether or not it made it into your lungs, right?
Mm.
And people were like, so the big things that people had I got COVID. Thank God it didn't get into my lungs, but I caught something actually in Florida that did get into my lungs. And um, but that, I think it might have been mold exposure, but that's a story for another day. Anyway, I think that when you have this burdened toxic, these closed detox pathways, and you get sick, you've got no way to clear this stuff. And one of the first places that you're toxic, you're going to go into the bowel and you're going to eliminate stuff through urine and through poo. And if you are have slow motility, low motility, or even if you have like diarrhea, which can tend to be the body trying to rid itself of a slow bowel, right? It'll
Hmm.
flush water through the system, so you get uh, wet stools. Um, this way, and then you get sick, it reflexes into the lungs. So I mean,
Mm.
I don't actually mean that stuff, the poo goes into your lungs, of course. I
Yeah, yeah.
just mean your detox system. So what we talked about before, it reflexes back into the lungs, and that's when this COVID is like, hey, it gets, the virus will go right into your lungs. Also the when people have dental, like a dental and low grade dental infection, that's a
Hmm.
big thing too. Someone posted a study on that, about a lot of times the people that got really bad respiratory COVID, they actually, a lot of them had Provotella, I think it is, which is like a halitosis type of infection in the teeth. It can be from a dirty old root canal or a crown, so,
Hmm.
or even just not really caring for your teeth well, and a bad gut, by the way.
Yeah.
And that this can immediately reflex and have, not immediately, but have this, you end up with respiratory stuff. And that again, it's like all your filters are burdened in your car and you're just putting down the freeway and you can't even put out your exhaust because you're
Yeah.
so toxic,
Yeah.
right?
So true. That's the toughest part with the detox, I think, for a lot of people, is that you can go and buy all the herbal kits you want and say, I'm going to detox my liver and do all these things. But I think the part that people haven't probably been the most educated on is that when you start to liberate those toxicities, are your pathways open enough to actually remove them and get them out of your body? Or are you just going to, pile the garbage up from your garbage can and pile it in the corner and it's all going to get stuck there? Well, it's going to reek to an extent. You might have got rid of some of it, but now it's going to be stinking in the corner because you can't get it out to the garbage truck to get to dry to take it away. And that's what
Yeah.
happens with all these detox pathways, including your liver, where it's this stuff's not open enough, and you got to learn how to open that. If that opens up, if that works really well, and you start to do it, your results are going to be 20-30% better than other people, at least, if not more,
Yeah.
depending on how blocked they are. But that's a huge one that we haven't been taught how to do, because it takes a little bit more expertise to understand how to do that and how to do it safe as you can and effectively.
Yeah, that is such a good point, because think about all these people who will do detoxes and then they'll get sick, more sick later. They'll do a
Mm,
parasite cleanse and like, I feel amazing. And then 2 months down the line or the next full moon, they have an eruption of, what seems to be a worse case of a parasite infection than before. And
yeah.
that's why. But sometimes, you can just open the pathways and your organs will do their thing,
Yes.
especially if you
Yes.
eat as healthy as you do, as healthy as I do usually. Because then you've given your body the tools to do its job. And people say, all the naysayers are like, you don't need to detox the liver. That's the whole point of the liver. It is
Mm,
does its detox on its own. It's like, wow, smarty pants, not so. It is the case, just like any kind of filter,
yeah.
a filter in your, air conditioner.
Yeah.
That is its job to
Yeah.
filter and cool the air. But if
Yeah.
you never change that filter, and
Right.
you've got to support it, especially with what we talked about before, with the exposure to all of the assaults on us. You have to support detox. And I think, in fact, I'm really glad we had this conversation, because I think I'm just going to start focusing on that with all these women in the group who are struggling. And then they add something in like progesterone, or they
Mm,
add in a B vitamin or whatever, and
yeah.
a dim whatever, and all of a sudden they're worse. And
Yeah.
it's like, how about focus on lymph drainage, opening your detox pathways, things that do help do that, and then just live your life and not be so like, I'm going to take 5,000 supplements including progesterone and pregnenolone and testosterone, and then try to get on in life. It's just too much. I think it's the detox pathway thing is has to be focused on.
I would concur. There's so many supplements you could take these days, and there's some great ones out there that can help. But at some point, after a while, they're not going to work anymore, because if the pathways aren't open, forget about it. Now
Yeah.
it's not the best use of your money. It might not hurt you, but it's not the best use of your money. It's not effective. It's not getting to the results that you want to get to. And in the end, like I said, everything just needs to I can imagine in my mind that if everything's just flowing perfectly and things are being removed and flow through perfectly, you're going to slough that off no matter what way you slough it off. There's many different
Yeah.
ways that you can remove this stuff, but it's all going to start to come off your body very quickly because at some point, and I've done this and I've been guilty of this, where I take supplements for a long, long time, certain ones, and they would help to a certain extent, but then they wouldn't work anymore. And at that time, I didn't understand why they didn't seem to be working anymore. I thought, well, they just, their usefulness is over. Didn't really realize that how congested my lymphatic system was in some of these areas because I didn't clean the air filter on my liver. It still wasn't operating effectively, so I still wasn't getting that flow. And the issues were going to be there for as long as they ever need to be there until I actually learn how to open that up. And there's only a certain amount of things that will do that properly. And I think the mud, out of everything I've tried, I mean, there's different things you can do, but mud is one of the greatest, nicest, most grounding things. I mean, you can get into other stuff, right? I mean, sauna's nice too. Sometimes that opens some things up, not exactly the same type of way, but opens other things up. But I say, if you're going to get your lymphatic system moving too, I mean, you could rebound, you can do these kinds of easy things that have a big impact. You
Yeah.
can hot and cold showers if you're down with that. Some people don't want to do hot and cold showers though, because they don't want freezing water on them.
Right.
Again, I like to use things that have the biggest levers I can help someone pull that they can spend the least amount of time on that'll have the biggest impact
Yeah.
and very safe. And I think mud is all of those things.
Yeah. It's great for children, as I mentioned. That's
Yeah.
something, whereas like, and Epsom salt baths are good for
Yes.
kids too. Whereas like sauna, you don't really want to put a kid in
Right.
150-degree heat.
Exactly.
There's a lot of things, they may not sit still for castor packs or whatever, but well, the mud is similar to the castor pack because they have to sit still for that. But it is good. I mean, we used it on so many, even babies, babies that had been in the hospital for a long time and had IVs in their little feet, the tops of their feet.
Mm.
We put it there. I mean, there was so many things, but again, I mean, um, I think you might have to refresh my memory unless you don't remember either, but it's the download, so the hands and the feet.
Hmm.
Then it's the major organs from the bottom to the top, or was it from the top to the bottom?
Actually, I can't confirm nor deny.
I think it's from the bottom to the top. Um, yes, it is. It is. It is.
Okay.
And I mean, I don't think it's going to cause a huge problem, but if you start from the top, if you've opened your downloads and you start from the top, you could still have blockages. So you want to make sure from the bottom up that
Mm.
your downloads are open.
Right.
So, but you can do every kind of possible mud pack, and people are like, can't I just bathe in it or cover my body in it? But you're diluting its strength. You're
Hmm.
diluting, if you think of it as a circuit once again, or like what's a good analogy? It's like you want to pinpoint the energy. You want to pinpoint the injury that you're at. So
Yeah.
if you had a MMR shot, on your arm, you don't want to put mud on your whole entire arm.
Yeah.
You want to pinpoint that injury, or if you have a
100%.
tattoo or something.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I mean, I think I need to start, using it again and just incorporating it into all those gentle detox methods that are super effective. And that's the thing I think we're so used to is like, if it's not a big gun, if I don't take dim and my pee doesn't turn orange, it's not working. I don't want it. If I don't do a liver flush and pass stones the size of dice, I don't, it's not, I don't, it's BS. It's
Yeah.
like we
Yeah.
want these big guns. And I think if we can just get out of that mode and just really commit to doing these gentle things over and over
Mm.
with consistency, you're going to get a lot more bang for your buck, I think.
I I agree 1,000%.
1,000%.
1,000. Yes.
So what else have we got? We've got an hour as usual. Actually, no,
90.
90. Look at us.
Yeah.
Okay, never
We
mind.
start we start out in the politics a little bit, so we probably got a good hour for sure in there.
Nice, great.
Yeah.
Well, what else have you
What
got? What have you been up to?
else have I got? Show me, what do you got? That's a good question. I think we covered so much stuff today.
We did. I'm going to
Um,
take that. I'll probably take that piece because it's so good. It was better than the first time because I remember the first time and
mm,
I was talking way too much. So I feel like we had a really good back and forth with
yeah,
this
yeah,
part from the
yeah,
energetic stuff and all that. I
yeah,
might even remove the political stuff just
yeah.
because this is so good.
Yeah.
And I know I lose a lot of people. I get a lot of comments. People give reviews and they're like, man, that she's got so much information, but I wish she'd keep her politics to herself.
Yeah, that always happens.
I know.
That always
It's
happens.
hard because it's part and parcel.
Yeah, exactly. It is exactly. So, I mean, we don't have to talk about election integrity. That might be getting a little bit, but when you start talking about vaccinations and stuff, yeah, the politics affect us, right? In our health.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I guess your show is the things that your doctor should know. Maybe they don't want to know about Maricopa County. But I
Right.
mean, sometimes we get on these little, it happens to all of us. I think that we do this long enough. It's not that we get bored with the small stuff, but we start talking about the bigger stuff. You start to get into the bigger picture. I see everybody,
It's the
like a
bigger
lot of people
picture.
gravitate towards that. I mean, even Mike Adams, for example, he's talking about nothing but nutrition in the beginning. And the next thing you know, all he talks about now is the cabal and like a very global look. We
Yeah.
always tend to lean that way because I guess we start to
Well,
get into
think
that.
about it. Who's going to shut down your business in Arizona? Katie Hobbs or Carrie Lake?
Right, right.
Who's going
Yeah,
to shut down your business?
yeah,
Gavin Newsom or Ron DeSantis?
right. Yeah,
Who's gonna mask up your kid when kids don't even get the, then when the percentage of kids that get sick from this thing is under 1%, like, or
yeah,
die from it is under 0.01. Like who's gonna do it?
yes,
That's
exactly.
why it's important. Here we
Yeah,
go again.
yeah,
That's why
yeah,
it's important. That's why it's important to
yeah,
care about this stuff, mom.
yeah. Yeah, my mom, exactly.
Mom.
You want justice or what? What is it with
Yeah.
us? Justice. I mean, I always say that too. I said it's just I don't know what it is. It's just I want justice, and not necessarily always a vengeful justice where someone gets the bad karma. I want justice for people in good ways and bad ways. It's like I say karma. We always often say karma. We think you're going to get your karma. And it's usually a negative connotation, like you're going to get.
Yeah.
The karma is good. It's on both sides. I just want to see people get what they deserve, whether it's good, bad, or ugly, according to the actions they take. As I say, actions create consequences, good consequences, bad consequences, and ugly consequences. So conduct yourself accordingly. And to me, that's your feedback mechanism, whether you're aligned or not.
Yeah. I'm going to take a scalpel to that right now and say, I don't think we want justice. I think we want fairness
Yeah.
because we aren't
Yes.
in charge of the justice, right? And if you believe in God, then there will be justice.
Yeah.
These people
Yeah.
who are doing these horrible things, no matter what you may think, whoever is the bad guy,
Yeah.
whoever really truly is up to no good on this planet, they will have to serve and be dealt their hand. They're going
Yeah.
to be. I
Yeah.
believe that in my
Yeah.
bones.
So do I.
So what I want is fairness.
Yeah.
I want it to be fair. I don't want Republicans to win every election. I don't want them to cheat. I
Yeah.
want it to be fair. I want my voice to be heard. I
That's
want
right.
your voice to be heard. I want to stand up for people's right to speak. I want people who don't believe who believe in abortion, who are pro-choice. I want them to be able to protest. I want them
Hmm.
to be as
Hmm.
mad as can be. And I
Hmm.
want to be able to protest. I
Yeah.
want those things for everyone.
Yeah.
And that's the difference between wanting justice, like
Yeah.
revenge and having a
Yes.
vengeful spirit, to wanting things to be fair for everybody.
Yes.
And
Yep.
so that's what I think it's about. And
Yep.
if people don't like that, then maybe they shouldn't listen to my podcast.
There you go. You have the free will whether to listen in to all this good stuff, or you could decide that you want to
Take a
follow
hike.
Dr. Fauci's podcast if he's
Yeah.